This fly is going to be a red Bloodworm Chironomid. I tie it. There's a lot of chironomids and bloodworms in the system, always in rivers and lakes, and this river is nothing different. When the biologists did the studies on the river, they found a ton of these bloodworms in the mud all over, up and down the river. So the fish know what a bloodworm is. The chironomid represents it. I'm going to tie it on a 2x long Daiichi hook, 1760 in a size 12 or 10. And it's a long shank, straight-eyed hook. I do like to use Daiichis. They're extra sharp. And I like to actually flatten the barb with my flat pliers before I go ahead and tie the fly. Some people use their vices. I spend a lot of money on my vices, and I don't want to ruin the jaws because I'm pinching barbs on my hooks. So I'll save my vise and pinch the barb with a flat set of pliers. I put a white bead head on it. Chironomids quite often have a white tuft on it, so I'm going to use a white bead head. I'm going to use thread 140 red thread. That's going to be the body color, so it lays nice and flat, almost like a floss. So I'm going to put that on as the body. Everybody ties their flies a little different, so this is just the way I tie mine. The first step I do is I add a little double tail of ultraviolet crystal flash. And it's something that I use on a lot of my flies. If the light hits it right, it's a trigger mechanism. So when you add something like this to a fly, it's just a little bit of more to an actual fly than a normal tie. And it does work. These little tails that are sticking out, the fish can see them. Their eyes are a lot better than ours, and they pick up on this flashy stuff. The next step is we're going to use the silver thread wire, and it's going to be a small silver wire, and I happen to have it all sitting right here. That's going to be the rib. The body is still going to be the red thread. So I'll tie it down. And I like to taper my chironomids. So I put a very fine amount at the butt, and then I travel up and I'll double up on the threads a little bit further up the body. But I like to have a really skinny little butt at the bottom end of the chironomid. I'll go back and forth and add my thread, and it'll give me a little bit of a taper. On your chironomids, you have your ribbing. So what I'll do is I'll rib it nice and neat. You might as well take your time and tie the fly right. Make it look proper, and you'll catch more fish, I think. It's just the way it is. Now, I don't go in with a pair of scissors to cut wire. I use my little wiggle method. You wiggle it a few times with a little tension, and you actually get it broken off. Now, on this one, I use a product called Solar Ease for the coating of the body. It actually solidifies the thread, it shines up the body, and it colors it into a deep red. Now, I love this stuff because it's so easy to apply, and it actually does a wonderful job of putting a little shine on the fly. It's an ultraviolet light sensitive product, so in order to dry it, you have to hit it with the blue light, the ultraviolet light. You hit it with the blue light, and it's dry in seconds. Now that's as dry as you really need. If you want to make it even one step better and a little more dimensional, kind of, you can add another coat to it, and it thickens up and tapers this body a little bit. And I like to add 2 coats to my flies sometimes. It just adds a little transparency and a good looking and it only took a few seconds to add that second coat, and you've got a better fly now. It really gives it depth and taperness and looks. On this fly, and this is just my pattern, I'm looking for something that is gonna catch their eye on something that they feed on a little bit. So I'm gonna add a little 1/8 inch piece of crinkle flash that's pearl. And that's going to be the hood. The next product I'm using is my black prism. It looks purpley blue, but it's called black prism. It's a product I love using. It's from, I think it's from Wapsi, and that's what the product is. And it's a dubbing that I use for the thorax. I'll use a single strand dub. You wet your finger a little bit and rub it in one direction. If you keep your thread tight, you'll find it actually hangs onto the thread quite well. I wrap the little thorax area. I don't overdo it by wrapping over top of it. I want it to look buggy. I'll pull the hood over, give it a couple of wraps with the thread, secure it in by putting one in front of it. I'll remove the excess, and there is thorax, hood, and fly just about all 100%. I'll whip finish the head, and there is one of my favorite patterns to use when I'm nymphing the river. For some reason, they like the color red. They know what it is, and they don't hesitate taking it. So what better than having a bug that they know what they're feeding on? And it's quite interesting. All these nymphs that we're tying, the fish take them, and I'm using it with a nymphing setup. 4, 6 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet down. I use a little split shot to hang it tight. I use an indicator. The really interesting thing is every time these fish take the fly, I catch them always on the end of their nose, right on the point of their nose. Now that is an interesting thing. That tells me one thing. These fish are tasting their insects when they're taking it in their mouth. They're not taking it down their throat. They're coming up to it and taking it. Now, it's really a interesting phenomenon that most of these flies that we actually are using and the fish are feeding, they actually are always tasting it. And they actually take the indicator down quite hard. So what do we know about it other than what we see when we land the fish? That's just an interesting phenomenon thing for me anyways. So there's my red chironomid. I like the flash on the back. I like the crystal flash butt. I like my thorax, that dark blue, black. Dubbing is good. The white bead. I do sometimes change it and put a gold bead and a gold wire rib, but I like it this way probably better than the other.